Good afternoon. How are you? After lunch? Today we're going to begin with this conversational regarding Tsunami Ready. We have the pleasure of having with us a very large group of the communities that have worked on that. In this first phase, introductory phase, we're going to have it by Cristobal Villagram, as she is from Puerto Rico. She has been working with the University of Maya West and my way, and now she's working with UNESCO, with NOAA, a little bit the project, Tsunami Ready. Krista started working on the Tsunami Ready project many years ago in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico right now is all Tsunami Ready, and right now Krista is working with some countries of the Caribbean, trying to carry this program to other places beyond her borders. So it's a real pleasure for me and for us and for Costa Rica to have Krista here, being able to open this conversation that we're going to have for being Tsunami Ready. Good afternoon. It is a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation of the National University in Sinaloa for bringing me, having you here for these couple of days and being with you in the celebration of the oceans and looking for solutions with all the challenges that we have given by that ocean that we love so much. It is a pleasure also to share with all the people that represent communities that have been acknowledged in the past years by the UNESCO and by the Intergovernmental Oceanic Commission for being Tsunami Ready. The Tsunami Ready program began in 2001 in the United States, and it imitated a program that was called Storm Ready that was made in the United States where there were tornadoes, and where it required the immediate response of the people. The tornadoes would wipe the cities completely in just a matter of minutes, so people had to respond very quickly. So it's basically the same thing as tsunamis. And tsunamis, 99% of the people that die because of tsunamis die in places in which the tsunami reaches in less than an hour. These are events that are very quick advancement. So they started working in the United States, and after the tsunami of the Indian Ocean, it's going to be 20 years now since then. Do you remember those images? Those people? 8 hours later, there were still people dying in Africa. 225,000 people died. When easily, with a good Tsunami Ready program, we could have had a survival of 200,000 people. There's always going to be some people dying when there are extreme events. But after that, based on that, they made many communities. They started asking, "Hey, look, we have the danger of being hit by a tsunami. What are we going to do?" So the response, we gave it in the Tsunami Ready program, and in Puerto Rico we started implementing the program that they had in the United States, and we went little by little, just like you. One community here, another community over there, looking at how it was happening, and in some cases it was a little more complicated, gathering the people, checking the maps, doing the plans. What do we do at night? We have nobody to warn us at night because there's nobody in the community. There's not a 24/7 center. There might be a municipality next door that could start it. So we started all that process, and that's a process that took 10 years, so that 46 municipalities in danger of tsunami might be acknowledged. In that, going through Puerto Rico, we went to the Oceanographic, Intergovernmental Oceanographic Committee, and we got together. We have 48 countries and the territories of the Caribbean, and each country talks about what they're doing. And Puerto Rico was talking about the Tsunami Ready program and how the communities were getting ready for this type of events. And the people of the Caribbean said, "Look, hey, that's real good," because they asked us, "How do we get ready?" And we don't know how to answer that question. And you have to make an analysis of the threat. You have to make a map, evacuation map. You have to make signage. You have to educate. They have to make exercise. Do you think that program of the United States can be done in English British Islands? Can we do it in Barbados? let's see how it happens, so how it goes through. So we started doing it and implementing it in some of the countries. So the response was very positive. The people said, that is wonderful, is that people would say. So other regions of the world, the Caribbean, they started doing it. Then they came from the Pacific and they said, hey, this is great. And then Costa Rica came, and Costa Rica implemented it for the first time in Ostional. And then we have Media Samoa, they implemented it, and we continued on. And after that, somebody said, go ahead, go for it. And we're going to create an official program because everything was pilot programs, everything was experimental until we came to the year 2022, when officially the Oceanographic Commission, the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of the UNESCO, establishes the Tsunami Ready program. This program, those of you who have gone through the process know that it includes 12 indicators that have to be met by the community to be able to receive that acknowledgement, or that recognition. For me, the recognition is extremely important because it implies a lot of job to be able to comply with all those indicators. So it's good that when you finish that process, that this community might be recognized as Tsunami Ready. So, starting there, we have that is being implemented this year in Cannes, where they do that film festival, the Cannes Film Festival. That city was acknowledged as Tsunami Ready this year. One of the first in the Mediterranean. A tourist community of internationally renowned. And they said, no, this is, we have to put the signage, we have to get ready, because if this happens, Cannes has to be prepared. And now we are so excited as to how the interest of the communities was advancing that we proposed the UNESCO and the COE a goal that is somewhat crazy, a goal that is very, very strong. And the goal is that 100% of the communities at risk for tsunamis in the world have to be ready and resilient for tsunamis for the year 2030. How are they going to do it? They're going to do it through the Tsunami Ready program. So there is a lot. In the Caribbean, there's probably about 400, 500, and we are only covering at this moment 60. So there is a lot of work to be done. So we are happy because we still have a few things that we have to improve on. I'm sure, and it's good that these communities in which the program has been implemented, they're going to share their experiences so that we might be able to continue on and enriching and strengthening the program. So nothing happens, and we're going to continue on with the Tsunami Ready program here in Costa Rica. They are doing a wonderful job, so I'm going to sit there and listen to their experiences and to continue on trying to make this program as impactful as possible. Thank you very much. Okay. Tsunamis in Costa Rica. Very interesting, right? Many times the people ask us that question, tsunamis in Costa Rica? I would like to have a little bit of the context, give a little bit of the context of Costa Rica. The National Tsunami Monitoring System, very recently we made a catalog where we registered 34 tsunamis in which several of them had generated some sort of a disturbance to society, to the environment. So yes, we do have tsunamis registered in Costa Rica. We do have to get ready for tsunamis in Costa Rica, and we do have to make a very hard, intensive job in this sense. And for me, it is very pleasant to be able to say that we have more than 50 maps in the country, tsunami evacuation route maps. We have many communities that have been working in the process for Tsunami Ready, and we have 10 communities that have already finished that program. So in this conversational, we have invited some of the communities in which they are already Tsunami Ready, or they have been declared Tsunami Ready, or where this process is underway, and where we hope that pretty soon they will be Tsunami Ready. And for me, it's a great pleasure to present to you my colleagues, my friends of work, of this great journey into this conversation. Let me present Noelin Ramirez, She is a representative of the community of Ubita. I'm going to present Ms. Sadie Jimenez. She is a representative of the Emergency Committee of Dominical, and I'm also going to present Maria Marta. She, I think that at this moment, is still within the Emergency Committee of Villahermosa. We have Denise, who is a representative of the community of Nosara. And we have Misael Lopez from the firefighters of Puerto Jimenez, Alexander Zúñiga, from the Municipal Committee of Emergency of OSA, and Ms. Emma, who is a representative of the Emergency Committee of TVBS. And without further ado, we're going to start with a series of questions to each one of them to see a little bit how their experiences have been in this stage. I know that 1 hour is very little time to be able to talk about this great topic, but we're going to see if we can summarize a little bit the job. So, I would like to begin with a question to Ms. Sadie and ask her, how has the methodology been? How has the methodology been for you to involve all the people, to integrate into that emergency committee, and to the plans that have been carried out, and therefore, that program was Tsunami Ready? How has it been? Good afternoon, thank you. Well, I am here representing the three communities because Dominical of Osa is the gateway to the canton. Then we have Domicalito Beach, where we work together. And we have Baru of Pérez Celedón that also worked with us. So we have three communities working together. And the methodology that we use is the strategy based on a fluid communication, using the methods that we have now, such as WhatsApp, email, the platforms, like to be able to carry out meetings via Zoom. And we have done indications that for the first meeting that we had, which was on July the 27th of 2022. And we had Fabio, Cristel, to explain to us how it was, and we did not believe that Baru, the Pérez Celedón, might be affected. But if there were a tsunami because of the Baru River, we would have the shock waves reaching us all the way. And by just a chance, we had two colleagues that belonged to that community, and we ended up staying there and working on that. So we put together a chat for a group, just for that of the tsunami. And we had like 22 people come, and there we integrated and divided, and we came to be. But there was a concern: how are we going to work? So you would separate each community or the three together, and we would do it all. And well, we had a meeting once a week virtually from June the 27th to December the 22nd. We certified as Tsunami Ready community, the three communities. We had like 6 presence meetings with them, with Mr. Alexander, with the committee, that we had some doubts, and that's the way it worked. We communicated almost on a daily basis, and with the timetable, with the tasks that we were asked to do. We advanced on who had to do this, who had to do that, and in reality we didn't have a committee put together. We didn't have an emergency committee at that time, but we worked very nicely, and I understand that any community that wants to implement a program, we have to take into account everybody. Sometimes we say, no, they are not members of the development committee, they are not in the emergency committee. And but the more we summon, the broader the invitation. Well, the more effect it's going to have. There's always going to be more people that do not have a position, but that work so well with all their heart and all their soul, and they want the best for the community, so they are invited. Thank you very much, Ms. Sadie. It is very pleasant to come to the community of Dominica and to see the amount of people that are working there in this process. How do they integrate in spite of the fact that there is a very large distance between these three communities that Ms. Sadie is mentioning, and how do they uphold every day more? They integrate more participants within this plan. And it is that these plans are bringing difficulties, they carry along processes. For example, in Playa Hermosa, it happened to us that at the moment in which we were going to make the map, we were right in the middle of the pandemic, and we had two decisions to make. We waited that at a given moment we would be given the permission to go to the community and work, or that we could make the map virtually. And we put that on the table to the community, and it was our first virtual map. It was very, very interesting, but I'm not going to tell it. I'm going to let Maria Marta tell us a little bit about that process. Thank you very much, Fabio. Can you hear me? Thank you very much, Fabio. Yes, it was an experience that was really unique because the pandemic for us in Playa Hermosa of Carrillo set a before and after. Those of us who were working on the committee for the integral development of the Playa Hermosa of Carrillo, the authorities told us, the Hidalgo authorities told us that you cannot continue on with that process because we are not going to let you get together, but you do not have an emergency committee. There was absolutely nothing, not even an association or an emergency committee. And that's where we started working to put together the emergency plan, and that we were contacted by Fabio from Sinamut, from the National University, and we started working. And I was telling him, thank you, Fabio, because this has been sort of like a herding cats. There was nothing, and now we have it. We were in the middle of the pandemic, and I invite you to come and visit the webpage of the Emergency Committee of Playa Hermosa, because the first photograph, we have all of us with masks. All of us are wearing masks. And in the last photograph, we have all the community, the school, in the last drill that we carried out, so that the children of the school, they were the ones who helped us in obtaining this recognition as Tsunami Ready. And the experience was very, very interesting because we made a summon. We had 2 sessions. We did it via Facebook to do the mapping. And the truth is that we had the ones that were dedicated to that. Yeah, but some of us were devoured by technology, and some of us not. And some of the groups, I'm including myself in the group in which we had the people who were least skilled in technology, and we had another one in which we had one of the managers of the hotels of the region, a family that was always there, and Alberto Salas is his name, and Alberto pointed out the points, the important points. He knew by heart Playa Hermosa. So we had the strength of having there the people who really knew the place. The experience was very good. It was virtual. It was with a lot of patience on behalf of Fabio. We all had to be very well connected and start and learn how to use the technology, all of us together. And the truth is that we were able to record it. We have that instance recorded. You can live it with us. That process we had to go through, it was recorded because since it was virtual, it was recorded. And the most important thing that we took out of that as a community after doing that mapping is that we got rid of that image of Hollywood of what a tsunami would be, and we knew exactly where water would come and where were the risk places. In Playa Hermosa, there is a first entrance and a second entrance. Main entrances to the beach, and in the main entrance to the beach, there is a parallel that gives way to a service that leads to the school of Playa Hermosa. And be it that the kids of Playa Hermosa do a drill of evacuation towards the mountains to run away from the tsunami, the children of Playa Hermosa are at high risk. Why? Because the school in Playa Hermosa was donated in a lot that it doesn't qualify to open up a road, so the gave way. The firefighters cannot get into it. The children cannot evacuate adequately, and we know that to be able to evacuate them adequately, we have to get them through a private property. And this is a struggle that Playa Hermosa is still doing. There were people that didn't even know that we had a school in Playa Hermosa. We have 100 children in the school of Playa Hermosa that are at risk because they have to evacuate through a servitude. It is incredible because the children themselves were the ones who helped us obtain this is tsunami ready recognition, and they are the ones that are more at risk. The experience of generating this map made us land and understand, because we all had mistaken ideas of what a tsunami would be in Playa Hermosa. Now we have a very clear idea of the real risk, and we know that we have a responsibility, and we are very proud of having in our first and second entrances our maps of tsunami ready. And we are extremely thankful with CINEMO and the National University, and of course with the UNESCO and with Oceanic View. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Maria Marta. Yes, the pandemic was something that made it very difficult, many things. It made it difficult, but it didn't stop us. And Uvita was one of the communities in which nothing was detained because of the pandemic. We continue on working. And we continued on working, and we were able to develop a simulation virtually. And that is something that we never thought about even before that. But the pandemic and the virtuality had to made us reinvent. We had to look for new methodologies, and it was very interesting. After that, we even thought about repeating it because it was really very, very interesting. And I would like to listen to Noelin Ramirez from the community of Uvita tell a little bit about the process. Generate this methodology and when it was carried out. A little bit regarding the situation that was much more difficult than obviously when it is something that is done in presence. Well, yes, it was definitely that way, Humberto, because of everything that a challenge, because of everything that Fabio had just commented on. Luckily, we had at that moment all these apps to be able to make the video calls and the meetings and so forth. So it was a Zoom drill carried out, or by Teams, one of those two. So there were a lot of limitations, but nevertheless we were able to do it. And I remember that we had at least an 80% of participation from all the people, all the stakeholders in what we call the tree of callings. Those of us who have worked with certificates, we know what we're talking about. So yes, we had a very good participation, always with topics related to the fact that there were some people that had very little connection, others that were driving and they disconnected, but we were able to carry out the drill. As an anecdote, something that happened to us, we were in the middle of the drill, and well, some of the colleagues had forgot the date that the drill was programmed, and all of a sudden we started receiving phone calls and messages from neighbors that didn't even were not included within the tree of calls, asking us if it was true that there was a tsunami alert, because they were receiving alerts regarding the tsunami warning. So in the middle of the drill, we were already really attending to a situation of communication with regard to tsunami warning, and that was very interesting to see the people, the reaction of the people, to see there were people who were ready to evacuate in case that we confirmed the warning. And obviously it was a very important learning to all of us, especially in the matter related to communication, to be sure that the tsunami, that the message reaches people in the adequate manner when it's a drill and when it's a real warning. I think that was one of the teachings, one of the best teachings that we had, and that was part of the experience that we lived as a community. Thank you very much, Noeli. And well, as it was mentioned by Krista, it is 12 requirements that have to be fulfilled, and they're not easy to fulfill. And all of them have their problems involved in the beginning, and in the beginning, many times there are failures, and that's the problem that we have to solve them. Right now, we're going to talk about the case of Nosara. Nosara is a community that began many, many years ago, and it is still in the process, and it has dedicated a lot of energy to the process. And it is a community that is very complex. So we have had, sorry about that, we have had the expertise, to explain to us a little bit about this, the difficulties that it has had, some of these topics have had. And I would like to talk with Nosara specifically regarding the labeling, the signage. What have been the difficulties that Nosara had in the installation of the signage. And I know that this topic is very broad and everybody might be able to contribute a lot in regard to this, but I'm going to leave the floor to the people from Nosara to explain how it has been for the communities a little bit this process, please.
Thank you. Thank you, those of you here. The part that could be managed digitally in terms of information was fluid. People collaborated. Second part, it would not be possible to locate everything in the map without personal support of the National University and Cinnamon, because they went there to Nosara to go with us. Literally, we were together looking at the map, checking the sites of the map, chatting in WhatsApp for installing. Challenges was with the physical installing, to have the cement, the concrete, to mix it for hundreds of signs. So difficulty was to find volunteers. We found private funds and workers of different farms. Instead, they use part of their daily time with us. We couldn't wait for volunteers. If other communities would like to share alternative solutions, we could do it this way with people who became as to install the styling to were donated by the Commission and part of the location, Cinnamon and the University, to go site after site, right, left, this is a place for evacuation, and so forth. And we were able to do it. One of the best things is go to the streets and you see the signs, how difficult it was, they look nice. It's a big work. Not only implies a community, also involves some institutions, as Denise mentioned. That is super important. Now, Misael will have the floor, so for him to tell us about the importance of how different first response institutions should be involved actively. And actively, it's in every meeting. In preparations and response to tsunami, these plans in order to become tsunami ready. Why should we involve more institutions in these processes? Thank you, Fabio. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, right. First response institutions in preparation arrangement is vital, as you already know. Meaning, we mean by first response, the Red Cross, Red Fire Department. Those are the ones we call to the hot zone, hot spot, hot area. But we're in charge of evacuation, especially the public force, the Red Cross, Fire Department, they for in terms of rescue. We couldn't have this first response entities involved in this plan. We will have a very conflicting situation dealing with an emergency, the relation with the rest of emergencies, because sometimes they come together. So at least we had the plan when we were working in Puerto Jimenez that there were some aspects that were not right. Point of meeting for emergency for earthquakes is within the area. That the way it would affect it, we had to modify that. First response institution could be also a concentration of victims, or to salvage unit should be involved about the tsunami plan, because they should not have a spot within the area affected by the wave. So this would guarantee not to have a conflicting situation having two events. Sometimes tsunamis are originated by earthquakes, so it's vital, not just by tsunamis, but first response institutions must be involved in the preparation plans if we have these events that threaten human life. Thank you. CINAMOT, CNE, we're happy about the work we have been doing, the integration, interinstitutional integration stated by the fire department. We want to make a change. We want to talk about the municipal work plans that would be more integrated. This is a challenge we have for the future. And I would like to hear from Don Alexander his opinion about involving municipalities within with a tsunami ready plan. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Fabio. From the municipal sector has been challenging. We began in 2017. We only talked before that about slides, tornadoes, electric storms, but we never thought about tsunamis, as it was a very important challenge. We undertake the authorities with the support of those integrated of the Committee of Emergency. We established this process to incorporate tsunamis in the Canton Plan of Emergencies in OSA. Then the greatest challenge was to take this to the coastal communities we have in these places, and we were able to begin with Marin, Uvita, Playa Hermosa. It was an enriching experience where I think from the municipal sector 15 years ago, the municipality provided this articulation, this support, and to lead that the communities play this important role. Because we have gone through in emergencies, we didn't have enough capability with 880 staff plus other institutions, but communities through community committees that were established provided the answer, the reaction. So the role of municipality had been to reinforce, to support. I'm a person that in charge of risk assessment. I'm also in the municipal committee of emergencies and coordinating and helping the former mayor, managing the process of emergencies committee, and we have big challenges. I was telling Fabio, we're working Canton de Osa, we have 26 committees. We want them to provide us with their plan, and the date will be the 28th of this month. It has not been easy. I feel proud from the municipality and the mayor's office. We have received the support. We have municipal authorities who are new. This new process that SINA would want to begin through local communities, in our case, it will be a big challenge in order to go beyond support, follow-up, which is important. Committees fall because they don't have continuous support. We need to provide them the inputs, the tools to help us in the care of emergencies. Let's remember, organized communities are the first respondents. They are doing it without any salary, and I tell them, all of you have different characteristics. The important thing is to have love, commitment towards your communities, because you live there. You're the ones who suffer, and you know each other. So it's important to provide this position, but the local government also to be there together, providing support. I want to thank Sinamot for the support provided. Sometimes I keep insisting to deal with this because I feel proud. We have 7 communities that are already in this process. We still have to go. We still have another communities in mind. We need to have all of the coastal communities to go through this process and to be certified as Tsunami ready. Thank you. Thank you, Alex. If we want all communities, not just OSA and of the country, to become recognition as Tsunami ready, we need that those who are recognized keep working and keep providing sustainability to the plan. I know some of those communities that are already recognized are still in the process. Parenthesis, pause, I'm sorry. Sinamot, 2 years ago, we built a methodological guide for preparing for tsunamis. Now we are handing out a book, a compilation of those preparations. So thank you for that. As I was mentioning, we need to keep working in the communities that are tsunami ready. I know the TVB's community have future plans, and I would like to hear from Doña Emma from the TVB's community to share their plans with the rest of the communities and with all of us. Good afternoon. Being certified is a whole process, takes years. It's nice when you get it. You feel wonderful. Super. But now we have the certification. What are we going to do? We cannot stop. We have to keep working. In our committee, we took the task of this challenge about sustainability. We have all of these. We have mobilized the community. We have built elements, aspects, strategies in the last few years in order to have the community prepared. And to have them prepared in this case, tsunami, that could come at any moment. We thought we have structured a little bit these strategies, the sustainability strategies, and we look at them in two aspects. One, managing point of view and educational area. In educational area, what could we develop? Elements of the community, elements with the school, specific elements of operational plan, and also with the members of the committee. We would work and we would continue providing sustainability to the part of the community. Well, continue with increasing awareness campaign, because part of those of us who belong to the community that are floating. Some of us are residents, but as a community, we get a lot of tourism in certain seasons, times of the year. If we are prepared, we could take care to all of these persons that arrive in a high season. In our beach, we can have even more than 1,000 persons. How to evacuate them? Even if we have our routes, we have all our process in place, we are working our drills, but how to reach these persons in this high season? Awareness campaigns, training, continuous training to the community, and also active participation within the community. Within these community aspects, we have reviewing evacuation routes, not to have problems with our signs. It costs us to have them there, but we have to maintain them. We have to review the routes, these safety routes. If there is a tree who is as an obstacle to that route, even if the community knows to have the community trained and to manage actions. If a branch is obstructing evacuation route, a neighbor could cut this branch. So this is part of the work we have to keep doing with the community, with communications, bulletins, and social networks. With the school we created for this year, we wanted to work with workshops with children. For awareness, we have manuals and material, and these will begin in July. My peers who have been working, Juan Carlos Jimenez is here. He'll be working with the kids in this workshop. Operational plan, we have to mention the plan, we have to update it, redefinition of roles, we have to refresh our roles, our responsibilities. On the other side, educational part, members of the committee, always updating, strengthening the committee. It's important also to integrate other persons within the committee who would be our allies, to provide induction to these persons that are being incorporated. This in the educational area. In the managing administrative part, we have a lot of work because managing, monitoring, follow-up, evaluation, review. In that administrative part, we have follow-up and monitoring. Once a month, we evaluate our early warning system. We communicate to see our siren is working, the equipment is working, the tower, if they need maintenance. It's one of the aspects for the sustainability evacuation route, maintenance of those signs. We have people damaging them, stealing them, and it has been very difficult to establish this. So we have to find who can work in them, how to install them again. Managing resources, we don't have resources. We know that it's voluntary work. So we have some neighbors, colleagues, associations that help us with that. Also, the last point would be the coordinations. Coordinating with whom? CINAMOT, CME, and mainly with first response institutions. The first one to respond is Coast Guard, because if it is a tsunami, it could be we have to evacuate through the ocean after the tsunami. But thank God we were able, which is a big accomplishment, to open a road that was closed to Alto Las Mesas, a mountain area, and we are very happy about this because that road will allow us to have another evacuation route. And we have a place 50 meters, like kind of a lodge before the mountain. Not only Coast Guard, we will have Red Cross, Public Force, Fire Department who are always with us in this process of what about to provide care to the tsunami. Thank you to UNESCO, CINAMOT, and all the rest of the institutions that collaborate for us to take this challenge. Thank you for my colleagues. We are here, most of us. So, support is unconditional, and the love for the community, that is very important. Let's love our communities. Please go ahead. Otherwise, we cannot provide sustainability. With the heart, all of us go and keep working. That's why we're here in the country. And we love Costa Rica. Thank you, Doña Emma. We'd like to close this block of specific questions with an applause for all they deserve it, the work they have done throughout these years. Next, Q&A sessions. I know Krista have one, so if anybody else from the public have a question, please let us know. I don't know if somebody from the public. Good afternoon. In the meantime, Edgar Cabrera, Captain, asks his question. I'll hand out a present to those who represent communities of Tsunami. A lot of work, but as you mentioned, it's difficult to become tsunami ready. But the difficult thing is to keep it that way. So I hand out this gift. More than a question, it's a comment, and I'm proud of being here together. Dr. Krista and its director Silvia Chacon Barrantes. We had worked in this issue of tsunamis, and to see your presentations, your commitment, what you develop in communities to reach this tsunami ready recognition makes this international exercise through the UNESCO General Agency, United Nations agency involved in establishing this system. I became very emotional as I listened to you. This group visiting you is a strategic planning group for protecting the oceans, Central America and the Caribbean. And to see what you're doing, it means that the rest of the person, what they do, need a recognition of the Costa Rica, your Congress, and the follow-up meeting, the preparation meeting for the United Nations. So I just wanted to say a few words and congratulate you. Because of time, we have to stop here, but it was told it's enough. So let's give a hand for them, for all of you, for the audience.
tardes. Vamos a dar inicio a la siguiente sesión. Esta sesión está a cargo del
Good afternoon. We're going to begin with the next session. This session is in charge of the Academy of Science of Costa Rica. And before presenting the presenter, I would like to talk to you a little bit about the Academy. The National Academy of Costa Rica Science Academy was created in 1992, and it has, among other objectives, the scientific the development of the country, where we have the dissemination of scientific material, to build a forum, a multidisciplinary forum, the permanent the science to collaborate with the scientific resources. Yeah. Ahí está. To promote the projects of law and decrees in the field of science and technology, and to promote science and technology. And I proceed to present the conference, the speaker for today, Dr. Radliska Kivisadir, a colleague and friend. She's a researcher of the Center of Research of Technology, CIMAR, and of the Center for Research, Microscopic, CIMIC, and apart from that, she is from the School of Technology, all this in the University of Costa Rica. Apart from that, she is an associate researcher of the Tropical Association. She has a bachelor's degree in biology and a licentiate in informatics, another licentiate degree in biology, and a master's degree in biology, and a doctor's degree in science from the University of Costa Rica. Her specialty is taxonomy of the corals. These are the soft corals. She began with shallow water animals, and then she's gone into deep water animals. She has become a world authority, and she has described species in the United States, Mexico, El Salvador, Costa Rica, Panama, Ecuador, Peru, and Chile. To this day, she has written 44 species, 3 genders, and 1 family of south corals. And in her previous life, she worked as a shellfish, and so she wrote a gender and a species of shellfish, and apart from that, a species of black coral, and she is just beginning. She has published 61 scientific articles and 61 chapters of books. She has been acknowledged as an outstanding scientist for 2014 by the Ministry of Science and Technology and the National Academy of Science of Costa Rica. Thank you very much, Jorge. And thanks to all of you for being here, and to the guys from up there for helping me with the presentation. The idea is to talk to you a little bit about the deep sea, and then about the soft corals. You can hear me right? Can't you? Yes. So when we see towards the sea from the coast or from an island or from a boat, we know that the sea is enormous, and it is what we all see. It has always intrigued us, it has always fascinated us, and we have always thought about stories of the sea. What sometimes we don't know or we're not very sure of is that all the processes that take place on Earth have to do with the sea. We are completely related to the sea life, to the processes that take place in the sea, and we could say that the sea is our vital support. So, if we have the opportunity of going down into the ocean, we can go down with snorkeling, with scuba diving equipment, with conventional equipment. We can go to a certain depth, approximately 40 meters, for experienced divers. And what we're going to see here is a life full of colors, where you can see many fish, sharks. It is a world that is very colorful, a world that is influenced by the light of the sun, and of course the coral reefs as we all know them. These giant structures that protect the beaches and that can save us from tsunamis, which was the previous presentation that we heard just a little while ago. Well, how much do we know about the ecosystems of the deep sea? Well, there has been an advancement in the last 30 years, but In spite of that, we know very little. The majority of the explorations that have been done to explore the sea resources, to explore the fisheries for fuel, for spying, for war issues, everything, the majority of the technology, the majority of the explorations have always been done with commercial intent or with war intent. That's the way it has been. The advancements of all the devices, the satellites, planes, and everything. And we sometimes think, we have thought that we have put a lot of attention to the space, and currently is that in space they are looking for the resources that we have been wearing out in the planet. And the same thing is going to happen with the sea. There has not been practically any real serious interest in regard to the marine biodiversity. So the first, many times we think that we have studied the space more than what we have studied the Earth, and we know that Mars and the Moon are better mapped than what the ocean bottom is mapped. But as Robert Bayer, a famous oceanographer, says, he says that possibly it is a matter of culture, because upstairs we have the heaven and down there we have the hell. So maybe it's because of that. Nobody wants to go to the hell. So the first samples that we had from the ocean depth were obtained through ships that would come and do draking. They would not give a lot of information about the habitats. All they got was a little bit of mud coming out. So the concept that we had about the ocean bottom, the bottom of the ocean, is that it was something that was cold, in a very stable and homogeneous environment. In reality, the majority of the ocean is like that, but there are many organisms that live in those environments. The new tools to explore the ocean bottom have given us the possibility of being able to know much more. There are now systems, special systems to map, where you can see different types of mappings. As you can see, different equipment that is used to get data from the ocean floor, and not only other ways. We have also developed methods of going deeper every day, like the robots, the ROVs, like these that we can see here, and crewed submarines like the Alvin, which is a submarine, the scientific submarine by excellence. So, the scientists, they have divided the seafloor in different parts, and it is a little bit to understand what happens in each one of the spaces. We have everything that is related to the continental slope, which is a bathyphyletic zone. I'm skipping the smallest one, which is related to the continental cortex. But this first part, the pelagic and the superpelagic, they are the places where the sun reaches. In some of the places, going down to some 800 meters, there is still an influence of the sun, where there is a place where it is very clear. But starting the pelagic zone, the sun doesn't come into those areas. Then we have the zone that is abyssopelaric, that's abysms, down to 6,000 meters, and after that we know what we know as the trenches, or the adalic zone. So what happens, let's say in the first part, the deep part, let's say, this is called the deep pelagic zone. This is where we have the great migrations of fish and other organisms that are moving from bottom to top and top to bottom, and that movement is up to 1 kilometer in depth. These organisms that live here are food for the fish, and there's a biodiversity that is very much unknown. There are fish, shells, medusas, sea cucumbers, and this biodiversity is almost unknown. Then we have the canyons and the submarine mountains. These are the places where there is more diversity. And this is where we find corals of depth because we have because we also have coral reefs in the deep parts. These coral reefs do not have any relationship with the sun like the ones we know in the part of the coast. These are reefs that grow only by growing. They don't have those symbiotic fungi. There are several species, and these coral reefs in general are made up by two species generally. We have corals of reefs, octocoral reefs, and we also have sponge reefs, and we have also reefs of black coral. On the other hand, we have the flatlands, the abysmal flatlands, that were considered to be like deserts, places that were very little productive. But there, they found that that is where the polymetallic nodules were, which is like the target that they now have, that the companies now have that want to exploit resources in the seafloor. But there's also a series of very interesting organisms. All these small organisms that almost are unknown. There are a great deal of phylums, and we also have the Xenophiophorus. This organism is an organism of one single cell animal, but it's a very big animal. And there are other organisms, and we have some Enteroneustis, which are sort of like a worm, a sea worm. Then we have the trenches, or the abysm, or the deepest parts of the ocean. Those places are from 6 to 11,000 meters of depth, and they resist more than 1,000 atmospheres of pressure. These are the places that are the most explored and more mysterious that we can find there. What can we find there? Not the megalodon. That is something that we still have not gone down to that portal, but we do find a series of organisms that are very interesting. For example, this giant amphipodus. This is the largest amphipodus that exists. It measures approximately 17 centimeters in length. We also have sea cucumbers and medusas, and like this anemonas that is believed to be an anemonas. We're not very sure about that yet, but out of these organisms, the majority have been seen only on photographs, and some of them have been captured at shallower depths. There are also certain sites that are related to the places where we have the dorsals and the places of subduction. In these places where we have the dorsals and the subduction zones, there is an division of emissions of materials, for example, methane, or we have the hydrothermal fountains. So there we have the trenches of methane and geothermal fountains. There are many organisms that are associated to these matter, and they are capable of supporting that and supporting living in an environment in which there is no oxygen. These organisms have special adaptations, many of them with bacteria that help them carry out their metabolism. Also, in the hydrothermal sources and the trenches, there are many animals, and many of the animals are filterers. And here we have the famous Mediblancus, or the pipe worms. There we have the centigraph, which is sort of like a crab that was found here in Costa Rica. And they have in their claws, they have bacteria, and they feed from those bacteria. And as sort of does it like this, they make sort of like a dance to be able to feed themselves. We also have some giant clams. These giant clams, within their system, they don't have stomach, or they don't have any digestive system or that type. What they have is a series of bacteria that are the ones that make all the digestion of their food. And the same thing with these other worms and these gastropods that have legs full of scales. On the other hand, another type of substrate that we might find is the remains of whales that have passed and their bones are deposited. And there we have discovered a worm, a Cedex, that is in charge of digesting all these bones, and turning them into organic matter that is later available for all the organisms that are there. We also have Silopagas, which is sort of like a Vivaldo that eats rotten matter that is in the seafloor and makes that nutrients that go into the system. And also we can see with all this that I'm showing you, we see that the ocean floor has a great heterogeneity of habitats, and that great heterogeneity, what it generates is a great biodiversity. As we saw before, 92% of Costa Rica is covered by water, 64% is more than 2,000 meters in depth, and 36 is under 3,000. What does this mean? That we have a country that is completely marine. So, we're going to see a little bit of how we are able to get to know those environments. How is it that we carry out this research? We need a boat, a ship. We need a device to go to the depth in which it can be a submarine, it can be a robot. And then in the beginning, we start going down and we don't see a thing. And as the thing turns on its lights, we start to see the pelagic environment, Beltonic environment. We start to see the first creatures, the octopuses, all these animals that are swimming in the water column, but the deep water column. Fish, sharks, some sharks like this one that we see here. Some other organisms that are even bioluminescent. Octopuses, and then later, further down, we see the crabs, calamari, and then we come to the soft water seabeds. We see this type of fish. We see many types of crabs. We also see some porcupines. We see some animals, anemones, some medusas also. These worms that were discovered very recently, the sea cucumbers, and then we have the MSRs, the issuers of methane, where we have these organisms that we talked about before. We have these giant clams, we have the jetty crabs, we have other type of organisms that are associated to living there that are capable of converting the methane into food for them. Look at the size of those. Those clams are very, very big, but obviously they taste like methane, sulfur or something like that, I don't know. This is a jetty crab that eats from the bacteria that it gets on its claws. These pipes were discovered many years ago. They are polychaetes from giant tubes, and we come to the most interesting part, at least for me. Here we have the submarine mountains. This is where we have the corals. The majority of the soft and hard corals are located there, and also the sponges, as you can see here, and many other organisms that are associated to this, organisms that create the third dimension of these substrates. And this is, of course, fish, sea feathers. This is a black crab with associated. So finally, we come to the Octocoralia, which is the group that I want to talk to you about. As you saw in these videos, these are the organisms that are most spectacular that we have in the seabeds, and they are all over the place. They are in the soft seabeds, they are in the hills, but in the high part of the submarine mountains, there is a great diversity of them. The octocorals, as I mentioned before, they are very important in the deep seabeds, and different to the corals that make up reefs. They can live from the shallow waters down to very profound depths. There's information that we can find them even down to 9,000 meters of depth, and they can stand many temperatures. They are found from tropical zones to very cold zones. So along with the sponges and the black corals, they are considered to be the engineers, the structural engineers of the bottom beds. A little bit of the taxonomy. They are within the Cnidaria phylum. They are also, it's the same one that the medusas and the anemones belong to. And they are also within the subphyle Androsauria, and the class is called Autocorellia. There are two orders in which they are distributed, all the amount of suborders that there are, and in these two, the taxonomic classification has a lot to do with the tools that are held to be able to separate the organisms among them. In other words, molecular tools or morphological tools, but as new forms are discovered of being able to identify and of being able to see the limits between one organism and another, and then the taxonomy has been changing a lot. As you can see here, we have a great diversity of what the octocorals are. These are very diverse. We can see different forms. You can see forms of like brushes, of whips. They can look like feathers. There are forms that are very branched, like fingers, or very fine branches. But all of them, you'll say, well, why are they all together? But what they all have in common is a polypus, and I'm going to show them to you very shortly. As I mentioned before, the sizes go from gigantic colonies that can be up to 4 meters in length, and it can measure up to 2 meters in width, like a tree. Like this coral of the Patagonia coral that was taken out from dredging in Japan, or some smaller ones like this one that you see that was in the Coco Island, that you see that the octocoral is like the size of the eye of the fish. So these are fish that lives in little caves in the Coco Island. So imagine the size. So we go from meters all the way to millimeters. Wow. Size in meters down to millimeters. So also in these organisms you can see this one of the gender Ubelula, which is a type of a sea feather, where if we make a close-up you can also see that they are bioluminescent. They are very beautiful, and that bioluminescence is developed or related to bacteria that they have in their tissues. What do all of them have in common? Well, the polypus. They are polypus that have 8 tentacles. 8 tentacles, and those tentacles are spine. They have sort of like feathers on the side, and they are, let's say, like they are within a cup. What they have is a mouth, and through that mouth is that they do all their vital functions. Carry out all the vital functions. So, if we have a branch of a coral, like here, we can now see the polypal, and we can see that there are some structures here that are also located in the polypal and also in the axis of the colony. Those structures are calcium carbonate structures. They are called the sclerites, and they are the ones that make up the flexible part of the coral. They are within a part that is called synechium, which is like a sponge, a protein, and what it gives to it is the rigidity to the colony. And as we saw before, they are also in the polypus, as we saw it here. They are also located here in the polypus. So those sclerites also have a very important function in the taxonomy. Depending on the type and the group that there is, we are talking about a different species. For example, this is one single species, this is another single species, and so forth. One single species might have several. And another thing that is very important is that the appearance of these octocorals changes when they are with the polypals expanded or when they have the polypals contracted. So, what is the ideal way of studying these organisms? When you talk about biodiversity, you talk about species, the number of species, and you talk about the fact that, oh, they found a new species. Finding a new species is not very easy. There's a whole job that is behind it. It's not just that anything that I had never seen before and now I saw it that is new now. No, it has to have behind it a series of research so that we can know that that organism is new. So the ideal way of doing it is to look for the organism, to see it in sight, like in this case. This is the way that a new species would be presented. You take a photograph to the specimen that is collected, and that would represent what we call the pulotype, and then make a study in optical microscopy of the stellites to be able to see the color and the shapes, and also to be able to see the general composition. And after that, the study of electronic microscopy. The electronic microscopy is fundamental in the study of the taxonomy of these organisms because it can give us the detail of these structures that are not seen very well when we do it in the light microscopy. And what do we know about the corals from the deep sea? Well, the opportunities that we have had in Costa Rica. The first samples were produced with a cruise ship that went the last century that made the first sampling of the corals of Costa Rica. It was then for a while we had the Victor Jensen boat here, and that boat made some draggings, which it obtained some samples, and then in 2019, they were able to explore the Coco Island at the pelagic level. And then we had the opportunity of going to the deep seas as such with the expeditions of the Atlantis ship and the investigation ship Valcor. With these ships, we were able to obtain many videos, photographs, and many other videos, and also many field data. So the exploration of the deep habitats surrounding the Coco Island was done through the collaboration with the Undersea Hunter, which had the submarine Dixie, and there was an agreement between the National Coco Island Park, the University of Costa Rica, and the company. And with this submarine, they made the first observations below 30, 45 meters, which is what you can go to in Coco Island. So, what was surprising is that in the shallower part of the Coco Island, what you find is like 3 species of octocorals. But once you get there to 80 meters, look at the amount of octocorals that you have. There is a complete formation. This is a mountain that is called Mount Everest over there. There we see an incredible amount of corals of the Municea gender. That is something that we don't see at the surface level. There we have a black coral reef also. Of course, there are many, many fish. And also manta rays. The fish are the most attractive, so you're going to see them in all the videos, obviously. And we find this very interesting octocoral, which is an octocoral that have a soft skeleton. They don't have any type of excess, and the sclerites are all throughout the colony. And that is a new family that we discovered. And then we began with a collaboration, international collaboration. The first was with Scripps, and using the vessel Atlantis. There was an expedition carried out in 2009. In that expedition, we didn't participate directly. We simply had some people go as observers, but it was like the first time they let us see the samples, that we were able to obtain the samples of the expedition, and from that expedition we were able to discover a new species of a black coral. Then between 17 and 18 there were two other expeditions with the Alvin also, and there we did have a little more active participation there, and it was a little easier to keep part of the samples, not all of them, but at least part of them. And although imagine that any foreign institution that comes to collect samples in the country has to leave the samples in the country and make a process later on to be able to take them out. But many times they skip all that. We know that we have had many oceanographic ships coming to Costa Rica. They have done many maps to which we have never had access. And they have also collected many samples, and we know that they did it when we see the publication. Well, but that was just an ad that I wanted to put out there. Also in 2019, we participated in another expedition with the people from Schmidt Ocean, with the robot Sebastian, which is spectacular to work with a robot like this, because the robot is 24 hours in the water, while with a submarine what we have is only 8 hours. Because it's while it goes down, comes up, and the battery runs out. So there is not, you cannot be all that much at the seabed as you could be with a robot that you could be observing for 24 hours. These were the sites approximately that were explored during those expeditions. Many submarine boats in the Coco Island. And from the coast to Coco Island, we discovered a whole amount of habitats that we didn't expect, including some sinks of methane. Sinkholes of methane. Then we had the opportunity last year of participating in 2 expeditions with the same people of Smith Ocean, with a ship, Barcos 2, which is the same previous vessel, but improved, and with the same robot that we had the opportunity of working with. So these were some expeditions that were very nice because we participated. We had a great deal of Costa Ricans participating, and there were possibilities of doing, how do you call it, establishing relationships with people from other countries that are interested in working with us, not only in taking the samples with them. In this trip, what we expected was Wausau was a submarine flatland, which is a region with different bathymetric accidents. I used to say geographic accidents, but I now heard Marino say bathymetric accidents. So these are the different type of formations that we have. We have slopes, we have submarine mountains, we have valleys and so forth, different things that we find in that zone, and that's where we were exploring. So, of course, octocorals are the main, the starting actors in this here, and they are the ones that create that structure, and they are the ones that have skeleton corals, hard corals, and black corals. These hard corals that we find in all these places where we were, they are very dispersed. There are several species, but they don't form reefs like the previous photograph that I showed, which was a giant coral that there is in Galapagos. We still have not found that in Costa Rica. And we have also explored this mountain at 1,250 meters of depth. It is called Mountain 4. And as you can see here, these are some sponges. And these sponges, along with these corals, look at the amount of organisms that are associated. There's a lot of crustaceans, sea stars, and we see also a sponge. This is a very interesting sponge because the larvae of some shrimp go into that, and when they grow, they cannot come out because they are trapped, so they live all their life inside there. That was given in Japan as a marriage gift because it is very beautiful, but the shrimp are trapped in there. And then, with all these expeditions, we were able to make this type of mapping. Look at what an interesting map. It is maps in 3D. You do a scanning of the ocean floor with a special system, a sonic system, a sonar, and with that system they create this type of maps, and you can see details. Like for example here, you see that here we have the ROB, the robot, and how routes are established between the mountains that are going to be followed during dives. So this is a great way of exploring.
It's the best way to know where we're going to find this robot, as the Alvin, as submarines have some arms robotic arms. They're capable of collecting samples. Some, they have compartments where you place the samples. Many times when the robot leaves the water because compartments are full, so we don't want them to stay there for a long time, and they need to be processed. Octo corals, these three you see here, and this is a sponge. This is another hill in Cocos Island in the base, which has sediment, and then we find this type octocoral. Are very soft. The structure does not have a central axis. Very smooth, very. When it contracts, it becomes like this. It retracts, and you don't see it. This is aqua umbra, as I mentioned before. This sclerite of calcium carbonate is where we have the polypus, and probably will have a function of protection. Then it's interesting to see how organisms in any habitat available. Mountain 7, we see these axes of sponges that died. They had this foot, and we found this number of organisms, octocoral. Victor Borgia is the gender. We don't know the species. We're not even sure of the gender. Brachiopods, hydrosaurians. The number of organisms related. The structure is covered. We have life. But no life, those depths. This Cysoplexaridus family, because we still don't know more. Look, they form a massive structure that established. They made a mesh against current usually, and when we have the current circulating, these organisms are feed themselves with what they get, particles that rain because of photosynthesis in the surface, in the methane systems to kino systems. They are manufacturing their own food. We have this orange species, which is very beautiful. We have found in these hills, Crisoborgia gender. This is a very fine mesh, has an spiral shape in many planes, so they store many organisms. Crisoborgia was a gender to 500 meters, but they have found them even in 2,000 meters. We have very charismatic in the depths bamboo corals. We saw this in a sludge place environment in the hill Bancoquita. This coral is sticked to a rocks we find down there. These corals, these bamboo corals, are characteristics of characteristics to live there. They have a mucus that covers their polypus and provide them with a special protection. Also, we can see in this picture why they're called bamboo. They have a central axis that have some nodes of calcium carbonate. These white ones and have hypernodules, which they have a protein gorgonine. This system they have provided flexibility. They are capable of living many years. They have been used to establish chronologies, slices, and you can see the growth in the diameter. They have a very slow growth, Sometimes it's less than a millimeter or a millimeter per year. So you can imagine that a big colony of them could have thousands of years. Here's a detail of them. Very nice. You see a shrimp reel in bamboo part. This is a view of the hill Moset, 123 meters. If you go down to 2,000 meters, you have octocorals, which they are the founders of this substrate at this depth. Many organisms look for them to have more height to take advantage of the currents. We have strychnoides, characteristics of deep waters. They have complex structure of sclerites. It's like a cover, providing protection to other organisms. We see trinoids that are always standing there. Since they're big, they can measure 1.5 meters height, so they are in the upper part in order to eat. To feed, this is Paragorgia gender coral with a star. Precious corals. Within the octocorals, we have the precious corals that are used for jewelry, and they have been exploited them in different places for this industry. Some species are not allowed to be extracted. Some relations in this, where we have Switia gender, and we have associates Antios, and also stars. You can see the complexity of these structures that are formed in the habitat that produce these organisms. Other organisms that are rare in the depth, grow in sediments, are seed feathers. It's a type of octocoral different from the rest. They have two different types of polypus in the same colony, and they have a bilateral symmetry. Polypus are modulated, they have a central part, and they have polypus on the other side. These organisms, what they do, where they alter the flow of the current, places where they can measure internal flow current. So it's measured by the feathers, and this produces a habitat for other organisms. This is interesting. You see under the octopus, we have an octocoral which is very small. We're working in them. The new species, very smooth, very soft, have axis. When they contract, we receive it. To find them like this, organisms like this size, and with the arm of the robot was able to collect these. We have some examples of the more preliminary studies we have until now. We have found 17 genders, more than 20 species, 10 families, and we have a preliminary list, and we're working there. What have been described, 2 new genders, 2 families, 2 species that are mesophotic area in some of the greatest depth. Some messages to remember. This richness in the sea. They found three-dimensional structures in the hills, the plains, sediments. These corals act as engineers of the ecosystems, altering the local environments in benefit of other species, favoring more diversity. They have a very low growth in long life. That's why are vulnerable to any change in the deep ocean. Now that we're facing new measures of pressure. exploration of resources. How could we alter an environment that we don't even know? We still don't know almost anything. We have a lot to learn. Some challenges that we have in this biodiversity of the ocean to study. It's costly, it's difficult. You saw the areas are huge, the access is complicated, you need to have boats, submarines, equipment. Let's say it has been mapped very little. In Costa Rica, we don't have access to the maps. They have been established. The first thing is to map to see what type of topography we have in those depths. Marine environments are changing because of climate change. This will impact biodiversity, and knowledge of biodiversity is an important tool to protect vulnerable ecosystems because we have to know what we have. If we don't know what we have now, then we don't know what we lost. That's the only way to do a real monitoring. Specialists, this is of concern, are very few. The groups are very few, and their work is fundamental for evaluating diversity. In many of these groups we are becoming extinct. Some colleagues have international support, colleagues that collaborated with the morphological identification, colleagues we work with molecular studies. We conduct molecular studies in terms of dealing with the integrated taxonomy. We want to thank the staff, Deep Sea and this boat who have collaborated. Eric Cortés, chief scientist with some expeditions with the Atlantis. Jorge Cortés, Yvette Orco, scientific chiefs of the expeditions of 2003, especially thanks to Elisa Edin. I met her in the first expedition in the Atlantis, and I admire her, and she borrowed. Let me use some images. Thank you. If you have a question, please let me know. Comments also, if you have something to say. Good afternoon. Maria Marta, emergency community concern when we are seeing the proliferation of black. Black porcupine from other cultures, in Oriental cultures and Mexicans, they consume it. We don't have any guide. Do you have any comment about it? Black. Maybe there are indicators. I don't agree with many of my colleagues. By my opinion, maybe there's a stress. You have to leave the environment alone. Environments are resilient. If we impact them from outside, placing, eroding the coast, pesticides, we lose all of these populations. But ecosystems, we let them time. We leave them in peace, alone. they will recoup.
Ahora, yo no creo que
I
uno
do
deba
not
explotar
know
un
if we
recurso
should
desde el punto de
exploit the
vista
resource from
alimentario
the point of view
si no conoce bien
of
su dinámica, porque puede
food.
pasar como en algunos lugares
If
que
you don't know
también
the
los han
dynamic
agotado,
in some
¿verdad?
places,
Y después
these
ir a sacarlos,
resources have
deportarlos,
been
pues tampoco, ¿verdad? No vamos a recuperar
depleted.
así.
In
Alguna
that
gente
way,
está
we
haciendo
wouldn't recoup
restauración
anything.
de arrecifes y
Some
tal vez
people
eso
is
puede ser una
maybe are
medida.
working in reef restoration. Maybe that's a measure. She needs the mic. Necesita micrófono. Necesita usar el micrófono. Sorry, I cannot hear the question.
Y lo que pensamos es que nos comimos
I think
a
they
los que se comían a los erizos,
eating them.
pero no sabemos en
We
realidad
don't
qué es lo
know
que está pasando.
what is going on.
Este es tu departamento.
Your department,
Que le expliqué lo de los erizos.
please explain about this.
Ya terminamos. Ok.
We're done? Okay.
Gracias.
Thank you.
I just wanna walk to a window
Good afternoon.
Ahora sí. Les doy la bienvenida
Welcome
a todos y todas
to
a este
everyone to
taller
this
cuya
workshop.
temática es la cooperación científica
Scientific cooperation
para la protección de los océanos.
for the protection
Un
of the
ejemplo de
oceans, as
diplomacia
the
científica con el
example
fondo del equipo
of
Francia,
scientific
FEF
diplomacy with the
Oceano.
CEF Ocean from France.